to the metal when the lane moving fast. Hey, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Hey.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I got a solo show today. My guest that I was going to have on, he is sick. So hopefully we're going to get him back on here in the next couple of weeks, just to kind of really break things down. And, you know, again, I understand people got lives and everything and real things happen, but, you know, I can always jump on and shoot it for 30 minutes here straight on anything freight related, because I live this life every single day. But just a couple of quick announcements here, and then we're going to get into the show. The weekly newsletter dropped this morning. Again, it's only freight related. It only drops on Wednesdays. And I need you to go to my website, though, to register for it. I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com, and it will auto prompt you to sign up for it. If you want to get in on it, drops once a week. It's all industry related content. All right. With my new partnership with DAT, we put some freight rates and some market insights in there as well. Now that will be in there on a weekly basis, as well as fuel prices and everything else. And again, it's a work in progress. We're kind of figuring this out as we go and piece it all together. But speaking of that, we are going to dive right in, you guys. I want to lead off these shows. The new segment that we got here is running 3 times a week. It's called This Week in Freight, and it is powered by my friends over at DAT. And Wednesday is going to be for Reefer Freight out there. All right. On Monday, we did a lane analysis for dry vans. Today, we are doing one for refrigerated trailers. And then on Friday, we are going to be doing flatbeds. And I want you guys to, if you guys want to get in on this, again, like, we're trying to keep up with the submissions on here, you guys. I might have to expand this out a little bit just due to the demand of the lanes that we've been sent. But if you want to get in on it, I need you to go to email us, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. I don't need any other information besides pickup city, delivery city. And if you want to round up to the nearest large city, we can do that as well. Just to, you know, if you think for some reason I'm going to go out there and try and find something, which I'm not, but if that's the case, just send that over, you guys, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. Submit your lanes in there, and we will break them down live on the show. Again, I'm not charging anybody for any of this stuff. I'm just a guy who moves freight, and I wanted to implement this into my show because I feel like this is just a glaring hole of what's missing out there from a content and a media perspective inside of freight. And it's very easy to point to a line on a graph and say, oh my gosh, the sky is falling and this is going on and that's going on. But for the 90% of us who are out here trying to build a sustainable business and a book of business, we got to find a way to win. And that's where my friends at DAT are really jumping in here, and they stepped up and they're like, we want to be your data partner. We want to make this happen. They believe in the vision as well. So we're going to dive right in. And ironically, this is one of those lanes that I was talking about before everything was announced, because people wanted to follow up on this to see where is it at, because this lane we talked about here was back in early January. I pulled this one up. And it's Kansas City, Missouri, going to Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's for a reefer. And we had pulled this up in early January. And just like the rate per mile that it was, because, you know, there's a lot of weather events that were going on out there. And again, I wanted people to see the spike, and I wanted people to see the overall stability in there. Because again, this is one of those lanes that falls into a giant day of the week category on when this shipment moves, what rate you're actually going to pay on this. So again, if we're looking at this here, the rate is essentially stabilized. Okay. Because when we first started talking about it, it was like $14.50. It's actually gone down a little bit here, but you can see on here, and I got to work on zooming in on this stuff, but it shows up here that the range, you know, the median rate that's being paid out there is $12.85 right now, going up from Kansas City, Missouri, going to Minneapolis, Minnesota for a reefer. And again, there's multiple classifications of reefer freight. If it's a frozen, fresh, temp controlled, it's all priced differently out there. But I think for this lane in particular, it's predicated on the day of the week that it is moving. And if this is a Thursday to Monday or a Friday to Monday, it's going to be exponentially more expensive to move this because, as you can see, it's only 437 miles that is out there, right? That's a one-day transit. So if this picks up Monday to Thursday, my assumption is you're going to pay between $1,200 and $1,300. That's what I would go out there. That's what I would quote carriers to try and get them locked in. And my carrier friends can't say it's cheap freight because that's almost $3 a mile. Again, I went to public school, but it's almost $3 a mile. I'm sure somebody will have a comment on that. But anyways, then I would argue, or I would go in and break it down like this. If I was going to my customer, I would have my Monday to Thursday rate for them. All right. And this is assuming they don't have a 12-month RFP where you're locking in. And then that's the phase of your business where you're going to have to eat that margin compression to service the account out there. But say this is all truck in hand, you're building up, this is all spot market style freight. I'm going to go and I'm going to give them a stable price where I'm going to give them a Monday to Thursday rate. And then I'm going to give them a Friday to Monday rate. Okay. And that's going to cover that cost. And I'm going to explain to them because I would assume that they wonder, why is it higher priced certain days of the week than it's not? And you don't ever go as far as thinking somebody actually took the time to explain to your customer, regardless of the size of them, on how the market actually works. I think you would be shocked at the amount of shippers that are out there that would love to hear from their transportation partners on why these spikes happen and talk to them about that so you can bring stability to them. This is something that we personally do that we have found a lot of success with in our customers, and that's in flatbed. So I would assume that the shippers on reefer and drive-in would love to hear a breakdown like this as well. And especially if it's that mileage thing, and you can essentially go up and double that mileage here. Like even if it's like 800 miles for a Friday to a Monday, that's still going to garner a higher price point from a carrier, unless they're from that destination city and they're repositioning their truck home. So if I'm going in there, I'm having that Monday to Thursday rate for them, and then I'm having that Friday to Monday rate. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to honor that as long as possible. Okay. And right now there's a lot of stuff that is yet to be seen on how things are going. And we're going to get into a couple of those articles here in a little bit. But again, I want you guys to see the stability out here. All right. This went through Christmas, New Year's, and a major weather event. And if we're looking at all the data that is out there over the last 90 days, there's been a $60 difference in price overall. I'm not saying that there weren't pockets that rates increased, but overall, the rate hasn't increased that much. So again, that is showing stability out there. From a pricing perspective, I would go into my customer and I would break that down. I would explain to them, this is why it's going to be higher on these days if this is when it has to ship. Or furthermore, if you can ship everything Monday to Thursday, this is the actual cost savings we are going to bring to you, which then they can eventually go, pass that down to their customers, right? Because that's kind of how all of this works. So that's what I would do. And again, I always like to show you guys the inverse rate here. And the Minneapolis market is staying strong for outbound reefer freight right now. If I had a reefer trailer, I would want to get up into that Minneapolis market because this has stayed elevated. I mean, this is essentially, if you go back in those recordings, you can see, I think it was at like 2,300 back there. So this has actually gone up a little bit here, it looks like. But again, this lane, if you're running those 900 miles right now, you're essentially doing $4,000 on 900 miles round trip. So again, take that for what it's worth, you guys. And if you're looking at that price difference that is out there, you're probably going to be paying closer to $2,900 for a Friday to Monday would be my assumption on this lane out there. But again, you guys, the market, although at times might seem a little shaky, it's a lot more stable than what might be out there in the headlines. And again, that's our job as a broker, as a carrier. And we are going to go in there and we have to find those stability markers. And again, that's not to say that we're not going to lose money at times and our margins aren't going to be compressed at times. But if you want to service your customers long-term, they don't need you only when you're able to make money, right? Like, I'm a capitalist. I love making money, but at the end of the day, you got to look at this as a 12-month relationship. And there's going to be times where you're going to have to choose to service your account. All right. Because if you don't, somebody else will. And especially right now, if you look at all of the earnings reports and everything else, a lot of these large companies, you guys, and I've literally been saying this for a few years now, a lot of these large companies have the bandwidth to operate at break even or small margin percentages, and they can crush you over the long term. And they're hoping that you're not out there servicing these customers at a high level. Now, I'm not saying go in there and just lose everything, but that's why you don't underbid yourself. That's why I never race to the bottom. When I provide a price to a customer or a prospect, that's my price, right? Like, I'm trying to set the tone on how I operate. I don't want to instantly go in there and show desperation and just start dropping my rates and dropping my rates. But that's not to say that I'm going in there with elevated rates that are extremely high and above the market and everything else. Like, I have a reason why I quote what I quote, but I also have a reason on why I don't just willingly walk into taking freight for the sake of taking it and then putting myself and my team in a bad position to where we cannot cover or service the account, because then you're just going to get shut off, right? That is the harsh reality of this, you guys. You're going to get shut off. They will find somebody else. There's 20-some thousand brokers. There's tens of thousands of trucking companies that are out there. So you got to do what you got to do to service that account. But again, you guys, we're doing this 3 times a week. This Week in Freight, powered by my friends at DAT. If you want to get in, if you want to get your lane, I will break it down on the show. I will tell you exactly how I would approach my customer or a prospect in the event that I was running that lane for you guys. Mondays are dry vans, Wednesdays are reefer, Friday is flatbed. Okay, so let's break down some articles here and get people caught up on the news. Obviously, I can't keep up. I try my absolute best to keep up with everything that comes out in regards to news inside of transportation on social media and everything else. And I can't do it. I literally am trying to find the biggest articles that I think have the most effect for the audience when I do these solo shows like this. But there's a lot of rabbit holes on social media that I'm not willing to go down because, frankly, I think 99% of it is for clicks. But one that's not for clicks is when you see a state government trying to pass a law out there to fine carriers for employing undocumented drivers. And that is coming from the state of Florida. TTnews.com. Florida eyes a $50,000 carrier fine for undocumented drivers. The new law seeks owner penalty in immediate incident-based arrests or audits. A bill is moving through both the legislative chambers in Florida that would allow impoundment of a commercial vehicle with a $50,000 fine if the owner has an undocumented driver operating it. The legislation contains sanctions against undocumented truckers who lack ELP, English language proficiency, and motor carriers employing these drivers. Motor carriers could be fined a $50,000 civil penalty, resulting in an immediate incident-based offense or due to findings of an audit of investigation. These two bills, called the Commercial Motor Vehicles Operated by Unauthorized Aliens legislation, are moving through there currently. Several provisions contain a state policy aimed at the CMVs driven by undocumented immigrants. The legislation requires authorized sworn law enforcement officers to take into custody undocumented foreign drivers of CMV. The proposed law would also declare an imminent safety hazard when the driver is pulled over. Furthermore, the bill requires a CMV operated by an undocumented driver to be impounded and taken to a secure wrecker, operator storage facility, or law enforcement impound lot. So I think this is like the first step. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot more states getting behind this, right? I feel like there's always a couple of states that are first to bat with a lot of these things. And, you know, and I've put my stance out there numerous times on this show in regards to this, right? I feel like you need to penalize these people who are knowingly breaking the law at such a high level that it deters people from even wanting to make that decision to do it, right? You can argue either side of this, and I guess I might be an anomaly that I can see both sides of people's arguments and everything. But I truly feel like there needs to be some severe penalties out there that punish these companies who are knowingly and willingly breaking the law. Like, and that isn't, and it's not just the driver who's hired to do that. It's the company owner who's signing off on all of that, because that's the one thing that I think is kind of missing out there. And when you've seen this throughout the past, right, is it's like, is it the individual's fault or is it the company's fault for hiring them knowingly that they weren't up to par on any of the qualifications and stuff like that? So I actually think this is a great move because it punishes the business itself and it's not just the driver, because I feel like that's where it needs to hit people. And again, a $50,000 penalty plus impound costs is going to very much set the bar very, very high, because I mean, there's enough predatory towing. And again, I want to be, I got to protect how I say this. I'm not accusing any one individual company of doing this, but I could see how this would be a great opportunity for people to go in there and charge extremely high fees to store this equipment and essentially go out and put a death blow to a lot of companies on this. But again, this is the repercussions for your actions out there. But, I look at it is this law explicitly, it targets due diligence, right? Like if you're running a clean operation, you have clean records, like I've talked about in this show often as well. As annoying as it is to have to prove that, I also look at it is it's kind of the cost of doing business. Like I don't want anybody to demand my records from me, but if it happens, I'm going to provide that stuff. And I also look at it, from this is like I had said, I think Florida, this is going to be the test subject state for this. I think a lot of other states are going to jump on board if this goes through and passes and everything. I think it's important to state that it's not into law yet. It's a proposed law, so that's not actually happening in the state of Florida yet, but it could very much happen. I think this will, and it's interesting timing, right? So depending on when this gets passed into legislation, as you guys know, Florida produce season, flower season, that's all about to pop off. That could potentially have a seismic shift in the market that is going down there, because if anybody is knowingly employing these guys, and again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I would assume those said companies will not allow their drivers to go into those states. So that would cause a massive capacity issue in the state of Florida if there is a large number of drivers who fall into that category. I would definitely, and again, like I think if this goes into law, if this gets passed, I would definitely audit who you're working with. And if you're a trucking company out there, I would get your records up to date quickly, because it seems like that is the key target out here specifically for the state of Florida. But again, I think there will be a trickle down effect if this goes through. There'll be a lot of other states who are going to jump all over this stuff out there. But again, you guys, that article, ttnews.com, Florida eyes $50,000 fine for carriers employing undocumented drivers that are out there. Next article, and this is kind of along the same wavelength here. This is from overdriveonline.com. And again, I always like to note this, you guys, all the links to these articles are going to be placed in the show notes for you guys. Easy for you guys to go in there and click on them, do your own research. Please read these articles on your own. This article, will insurers drop carriers with non-English speaking non-citizen drivers? 7 months after President Trump's ELP mandate took effect and 5 months after the FMCSA sought to purge some 200,000 non-domiciled drivers, have insurers started dropping carriers that employ recent arrivals. Insurers have keep a keen eye on the risk profiles of the carriers they cover. Trump called this a non-negotiable safety requirement for professional drivers. And, the DOT raised serious questions about the qualifications and safety of non-citizen drivers. One lawyer basically described this population of drivers as a nuclear verdict waiting to happen. Yet, according to Trad Kroger, not to be confused with the lead singer of Nickelback, VP and Managing Director of Central Analysis Bureau Risk Management Platform for Insurance Companies, Insurers are still learning. Insurers are certainly paying attention to it. He said of the ELP violations, we've had numerous insurers reach out to us asking about the current and historical data. With already more than 10,000 out-of-service violations handed down, the topic continues to gain traction. If we bring this up, ELPs in meetings, insurers always perk up and want to understand it more. Lisa Paul, an executive vice president at Trucking Insurance Alliance, one of the country's largest insurance brokers, said that insurers pay attention to ELP violations, but generally only in as much as they contribute to the fleet's overall out-of-service rate. I look at this, overall as, and the insurance companies are going to definitely go but like I think that there's such a fine line that is out here, because I think like what is being uncovered, and again, allegedly all of this stuff exists. It's not been proven in the court of law, and my attorney always likes to say, preface it by allegedly. Allegedly, there are insurance companies who are knowingly doing this, right? I would assume that how these the legitimate insurance companies will say that, how they vet their providers, there's probably a very complex algorithm that they all follow, and the thresholds on what comes into play here. But I would say they're definitely going to start paying attention to this. But again, does that also include the insurance companies out there that are allegedly knowingly insuring these companies that don't have clean operations that are out there, right? Like, I think you can draw some parallels to the ELDs and stuff like that. Like the FMCSA has put out a ton of ELD providers out of service, out of business, because of all the fraudulent activities that are going on. I would assume that they will inevitably find their way into the insurance game and find those companies that might allegedly be insuring fraudulent carriers that are out there. I would assume the majority of them allegedly forge their documents, and somehow that passes a lot of stuff. But, I look at it is because it talks about the new ELD mandate in this article, and estimates suggest that up to 10% of the active driver pool could be sidelined by these insurance and language requirements. And, it also, it's a fight to quality, and there are some shippers that are asking for language compliance certificates as part of their RFPs. And, again, I think that this hits that gray area a lot. The ones that, and again, like I look at this as, and I've said this a lot on this show, there's a standards issue. There's a pass-fail basis that needs to be applied that is out there. And if people are not operating in accordance to the law, they shouldn't be operating in business, right? And I think it's also another very important part to see, and I see this all over social media a lot. The crash data that is out there does not notify, or like there is no category that says X percentage of crashes were done by this style of driver, non-domiciled or anything like that. So that argument that that's where all the crashes are happening from is irrelevant, because again, if you can't prove it, it's just your opinion. All right. And everybody's got an opinion on social media. But the data is the data, and you can't argue that right now. So until there's a new data set that is put out there that states that explicitly, my opinion on that will remain the same. But I look at it as, the way that things are out there in the market, the carriers who do the right thing have been hurt the most by the ability for these gray area operators to go out there and run, right? And I look at it as, it's like I said, it's a pass-fail thing to me. Either you're compliant or you're not. And the rules are the rules, and everybody has to follow them. I have to follow them, or I get put out of business. I get sued. Everybody can shut me down. So it's like I will always go off of this statement for this stuff. We need a set of standards. Standards are a good thing. And if you're operating legally and compliant, you're going to be fine. It might be annoying for a little bit, right, to prove that you are who you say you are. But I feel like in the long term, there is a golden age of freight that is coming to those asset-based carriers that have been doing it the right way for a very long time. I truly, truly feel that way. And especially with the push for, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a tax incentive put out there for American companies doing business with American companies here coming up, the way that the current administration goes about this. Again, I don't know that for a fact. I would just assume that that might be a thing. So that article, you guys, talking about will insurers drop carriers with non-English, and non-English speaking, non-citizen drivers. I think that it's still out to jury on what will happen with that, but that's an interesting thing to see on if it will actually go into effect. But again, I think that there's a very fine line between the insurance companies who operate by the book and then those gray area insurance companies that allegedly insure, air quote, policies for companies that might be breaking the law. But third and final article, you guys, this is from freightwaves.com, and it says transportation metrics show further tightening in January. Excuse me. And this one, January 2026, the data that is out shows a significant tightening in the market. Tender rejection spiked. Transportation prices grew at their fastest rate since 2022. And that the LMI Logistics Manager Index does confirm capacity is contracting that is out there. Again, I always err on the side of caution with everything that I see. And are there areas that are tightening up? Yes, I'm sure. But I'm like, when I go out and talk about how the market is going to be in the next 90 days, for example, I want to get out of this winter lull, and especially when there's a couple of key storms that have happened that have blanketed large portions of the country with snow. Has that laid into a rise in tender rejections that were going on out there? Because anytime there's snow on the East Coast and it delays shipments in there, and if people had reloads out, they're going to reject that tender because their truck didn't make it due to delays for whatever reason, right? Like there's a myriad of different things that can happen out there. And again, I want the market to recover as much as anybody does out there. I just like to err on the side of caution before I go out there and make any statement that things are going to be better, because I feel like I have a responsibility as people who listen to this show to not paint a false hope. Am I going to be wrong at times? Yeah, I am. But I want to be cautiously optimistic about this, because I don't want to go out there and bang the drum that everything's going to be better. And then in 30 days, when weather starts to stabilize out there in the market, and then maybe capacity starts to stabilize a little bit, and then everything kind of falls back down potentially. I don't know. So I look at it as tender rejections going up are a good thing, especially in January. I think that's a really good sign. I would be a lot more optimistic if there wasn't some large weather events in the month of January that could have potentially caused from that. Not saying that isn't the case. I look at it that a lot of the stuff that's going on there, it is very accurate when this article states that there are carriers that are leaving the market. That's very accurate. You cannot argue that at all. But I also look at it as the price surges that we're seeing out here. Again, I want to see more time pass before making any statements out there that there might be some short-term blips. And, again, I saw it personally in my book of business. My rates increased that were out there. But again, there was specific weather events that were tied to that. So that's kind of part of it. That's why I can explain it that way. But I look at it that going into bid season, which depending on when your customers bid their freight, RFPs, everything that is out there, I think if you locked in contracted pricing in late 2025 for 2026, I think you could be in as a broker, you could be in for a market flip from that perspective that rates are going to increase. But like I've always stated, you guys, that is how this next iteration of the market is going to go. Like, this is not going to benefit brokers' bottom line, you guys. If anything, it's going to contract it at a high level that I don't know if a lot of people care to remember or have ever operated through. Because I think, again, barring a catastrophic event, shippers are going to dig their heels in as long as they possibly can. All right. And people are going to have to either operate for less margin at a loss or potentially give the freight back if there is any continuation of this, right? So that's why I'm saying it's still yet to be seen. But I don't know if shippers are going to be quick to raise their prices in 2026 yet. I think this is one of those situations, though, that I would be definitely monitoring very, very closely. If I had locked in RFPs from 2025 as a broker, again, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news for anybody, but this next market flip is not going to benefit freight brokers from going out there and making high margins on loads. This is going to be a service, sustain your current customers and try and get in with new business as this next iteration of the market goes down. But I think it's still too early to tell, but there are signs out there that are pointing in that direction. But again, until I can see a specific data set that comes by without a major event that I could point to be like, yeah, that could have caused it, then my opinion could change on it. But again, great information in this article. Check it out, you guys. Freightwaves.com. Transportation metrics show further tightening in January. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I want to end the show by saying this, you guys. This Week in Freight, it's our new segment. First 5 minutes of the show, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you want to get me to break down and analyze a lane that you are maybe needing some further clarification on, and how do I price this for the long term? How do I read this market? I want to bring stability to my customers. Email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. I only need shipping city, delivery city, and trailer type. That's all I need from you guys. I don't need commodity. I don't need tarp on tarp, fresh, frozen, anything like that. And like I said, round up to the nearest big city if you want to remain even more anonymous out there in it. But that's how we're going to do it, you guys, because again, whether the market shifts or not, we got to find a way to win no matter what. I have my literal entire future on the line to make this happen. All right. So that's the standpoint that I'm coming from. So that's going to be it for today, though, you guys. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Hey, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when the lane